So, Netflix might be buying WBD. Like, there's a lot of things to talk about in this. This one might feel a little odd because I'm going to be posting this on both of my channels. The one where I discuss wrestling because it has AEW related, but also politics and corruption and business. Right. So, let's jump right in. WB is now for sale. They did a merger with AT&T that failed, and then they were offloaded, and then they got with Discovery, and that failed to form WBD. And now, but clearly, third time's the charm, right? So, what is this? How does this affect the movie industry at large? Well, let's start with this. How does it affect AEW? Well, AEW currently has a contract with WBD that is not up until 2027, and they even have one extra year on that option deal. The worry is that if Netflix is allowed to buy WBD, at which point, at this point, who knows? This whole deal might be completely fucked. Here are a few of the scenarios that might happen as far as AEW is concerned. First off, Netflix might just keep WB as their own money-making machine, allowing them to do their own thing creatively, but with Netflix as the money managers at the helm making the business decisions. So HBO Max may continue to exist as its own line of business. Apparently, the deal isn't even for the cable networks, it's strictly for the content library and the movies. HBO Max might be absorbed into Netflix, but then with WWE on Netflix, the streaming giant, what happens to AEW? Well, if you're a wrestling fan, I wouldn't worry too much about it. There are other options. There's Peacock, there's Disney Hulu, there's Apple TV, there's Prime and Paramount. And my least favorite, but also possibly the most likely, Fox. They recently launched a sports app, and it might be looking to bolster their ranks with a primetime wrestling show like AEW. Ultimately, I believe Tony Khan I do believe that Tony Khan has the business savvy to keep AEW alive. He has an overall positive relationship with most of the top executives at Warner Brothers. He's also currently making plays to expand AEW's reach all over the place, all over the world. Additionally, it's the last option, but honestly, it's the most fantasy booking of all. What if by the year 2028? So, here's one thing. Netflix technically has a 10-year deal with WWE, but they have a 5th-year option to get out of that deal if they want to. If they renew the AEW deal for 2027 to 2025 for one additional year, they would need one more year on the contract, but they could parlay that into a 2-year deal with AEW and then, at the 5-year mark, knock off WWE and add AEW to Netflix because AEW is a lot less expensive. The ratings have only gone worse for WWE as they've been on Netflix. So, why continue to have this thing when I can have this thing for less than half the cost, but almost as much drawing power? Not to mention, they're only getting 3 hours of Raw, right? With AEW, they would get 4 hours. They would get more content for less than half the price. I mean, that's fantasy booking, but who knows? Who knows what's going to happen there? Bear in mind, it's also entirely possible that the WBD deal with Netflix doesn't even go through. It may not even go through with Paramount, because apparently Paramount's bidding a hostile takeover of WBD, but we don't even know if that's what's going to happen. So it's very complicated all the way through. So that's the wrestling portion. You can kind of cut from here if you're the wrestling fan. But now let's talk about as far as the corruption and political side of all this. So let's discuss how this might affect the movie industry as a whole and how it might be prevented and the fallout. So first, the industry. It is projected that if this deal does go through, Netflix would have a damn near 40% market share of the industry. Literally, every other media giant does not want this to go through. The actors union does not want this to go through. Writers union does not want this to go through. Any effects artists union does not want this to go through. Disney does not want this to go through. Literally, everyone outside of these two businesses does not want this deal to go through. Movies are an overall big source of revenue for, let's say, Disney, along with the merchandising. If Netflix pulls Warner Brothers movies from theater releases, there's fewer films to be released in theaters that could start to close up because they can't be supported by one simple studio. From there, studios cannot release theater films to recoup the losses or the money that they're spending on their content due to the cost. And also, if you don't have that advertising, how do you sell your merchandise? They start to bleed out. This is an overall bad thing, obviously. There's also the question of how will it affect the pay of the actors, the writers, CGI artists, among other professionals. Because clearly a monstrously large corporation would screw over everyone if it benefits them, right? Additionally, if they begin to swallow up other studios, it will have an overall negative effect on the overall entertainment industry. I would argue that we've had this golden age of streaming we've been able to enjoy all these great shows and content that would have never been made 30 years ago. And all that might come to an end. Now, let's talk about how this might be prevented. The same day that the merger was announced, people from both the Democratic and Republican Party cried foul about this deal and certain congressional approvals that it's going to need. Even the orange jolly jackass even has something to say about it, saying that he's going to investigate it very closely. It's not because he doesn't want the monopoly, it's because Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, is with Paramount trying to make the purchase on the other side with more money. So it's, again, very corrupt. Luckily, we still live in a mostly corrupt age where a simple bribe might get the douchebag to do something. Anyway, several industry insiders penned a letter to Congress hoping to stop this merger from ever happening. Actors and industry leaders don't want this. Fans are in an uproar at the thought of a 2-week theatrical window for movies. Now, Netflix's CEO is saying that, we're gonna, keep it the same, which clearly a CEO has never gone back on his word, right? So, what happens next? Well, first off, they need the FCC approval given how big this merger is. If it's anything above 20%, they need FCC approval. But given how corrupt the current administration is, it's kind of a toss-up whether or not it goes through. Additionally, Paramount, again, has been aggressively pursuing WBD with a hostile takeover attempt. For those of you that don't know what a hostile takeover is, a normal merger is when you go through management and the shareholders and you're like, hey, here's how much money I can offer to buy you out. Here's the thing about Wall Street and business. You have to take the highest possible bids. So if Paramount makes a higher bid, but they're not going through management, they're going directly to the shareholders, they have to go with the highest bidder, right? Unless the shareholders approve a sale to someone lower for less money. It's complicated. Look, ultimately, WB being bought out by any entertainment company is a bad thing, I think. I think ultimately the best solution would be for it to be ran by competent people, but I mean, some other big entertainment agency buying them is just, I don't know. They should be able to exist on their own, and they can. They just keep failing at it. David Zaslav has made them profitable, but he's made them profitable in the short term for a sale. For example, does anyone think it was a coincidence that they stopped the HBO stopped the Sesame Street deal along with the current administration, but then Netflix swallowed up Sesame Street from that? Was that kind of a, hey, we're going to give you some of these properties now while we can kind of situation? That was a lot. Anyway, yeah, that's the WBD deal. That's Warner Brothers and Netflix and Paramount and all this corruption, and I don't know.